A Dream Come True by MJNight03, Chapter 7, Key to the Heart. To Victor's surprise and immediate disappointment, Nova hadn't woken him for the sunrise the next morning. By the time he had risen out of bed, he could tell the sun was high in the sky, even with his curtains barely managing to dull the light. After allowing himself a few minutes to get used to the shine, he pulled his curtains aside, blinking a few times. The room was empty, save from Vance, the most nocturnal among all the vampires, who still snoozed in the top of the bunk of one of the beds furthest from his. Vance had gotten a sunburn on the first day, which was completely fine now, thanks to their accelerated night healing, but he still refused to get up before sunset because of the trauma. How late was it? He looked at the clock on the wall. Almost 10. God, he hadn't realised how exhausted he'd been till his head hit the pillow. He had half expected himself to be up half the night, tossing and turning with the thoughts of the day, only to pass out the second he was in his bed, before the other campers had even finished dinner. And yet, somehow, he'd still managed to sleep right through breakfast. He knew he should get up, find wherever his friends were and join them, before he risked missing lunch as well. But something was keeping him glued to his bed. A dread filled his stomach. Something was going to change today. He felt it. And he wasn't sure if he was ready to face what it was. Those colourful tiles he had found on the ground of the ruins. They were linked to the next key. He was sure of it. And he wanted to find them. He did. Finding the keys and unlocking the orchard meant that his people wouldn't have to suffer anymore. That the kids would finally have enough to eat every day. That they wouldn't have to ration themselves on the bare minimum of what they needed to survive. That they could go back to flying freely whenever they pleased, not having to conserve their strength. Victor couldn't even remember the last time he saw vampires flying through the streets just for fun, the way that they did when he was a kid. But finding the keys also meant the end of this camp, this small release he had found, his time in the real world, outside of his closed-off village, his time with Nova. And, God, Nova. What if, when all this was over, she decided that this thing between them, whatever it was something she didn't want to have to take back with her? What if she decided he was better kept as a summer memory? A moment she would look back on fondly, years from now, but never giving him more than a passing thought. The vampire who had fallen in love with her when she was just trying to help her people. Victor smacked his cheeks. No, he couldn't think like that. He had to believe that what they had was real. And even if it wasn't, he couldn't live on what-ifs. He needed to know how she felt, how she'd proceed. And he wouldn't know until they found the keys. Until he showed her the ruins again. Until he got up, right now. He swung out of the bed. He really should get ready quickly, especially if he wanted any chance of showing Nova the ruins before lunch. He could hope that whatever the morning activity he'd missed out on hadn't taken the girl too far away. Victor slipped his shirt off his head and threw it onto his bed, and then jumped when the cabin door swung open behind him. God, Vera would kill him if she knew he wasn't getting changed in the closet. Again. Only when he turned to face the intruder, it wasn't Vera. He was met with Nova's scarlet face, her eyes darting up and down his chest before she squawked, covering her eyes and spinning around quickly. "I'm so sorry!" She vanished before he could even blink, slamming the door shut behind her, leaving Victor staring at the door dumbly. "Wah!" Vance woke up mid-snore, his head poking from between his curtains. "Ugh, you again," he complained, noticing Victor standing in the middle of the room, shirtless. "Keep it down, would you, Princey?" He snapped the curtains shut behind them. Snores resumed a few moments later. Victor's brain had completely glitched. Had she just... He was sure he saw her eyes moving. He couldn't control the laugh that bubbled out of him. That would teach her to enter a guy's cabin without knocking. He took his time getting dressed now, still not moving into the closet. She'd be back. She had come looking for him for a reason, after all. He hummed to himself, pulling his sketchbook out from his pillow and making himself comfortable at the table near the window. He opened to the most recent page, the most recent of many drawings of Nova. The one he had done the night before coming to camp, the night before he had met her for real, heard her voice for the first time, felt her touch. The Nova on the page wasn't right, not anymore. Her eyes were too dull, her hair didn't shine, and her expression was too cold. As much as he wanted to fix it right then and there, the real thing was likely hovering just outside his door. He flipped to a random page, quickly finding an older, unfinished work. The blood moon in Shadyside. Victor remembered exactly where he'd been when he drew this, only hours after one of their notorious thunderstorms. The rest of the town still sound asleep when he had absconded to the cliffs over the beach. He had to admit, he did miss the view from up there. It was the one place in Shady that felt like it belonged to him, Vera, and Vargas, as most of the other vampires were too afraid of falling and having to fly such a large distance back to town. Which Victor had done. Twice. His aunt had refused to give him any extra blood for both times, claiming the energy he exerted unnecessarily was his own fault, and maybe being hungry would help him think twice about following his worst impulses. He was so caught up in the memory of it all that he jumped when someone knocked. Right. Nova. "Who is it?" he called back, humour filling his voice as he leaned back in his chair. The door creaked open slowly. Nova poked her head inside, eyes scanning the room carefully, before she finally pushed the door open and stepped in, glaring at him. "Mean!" She stuck her tongue out, and Victor couldn't control his laugh. "Sorry, sunshine," he teased, letting his chair fall forward. "But you are the one who took advantage of not needing an invite. Maybe there's a reason vampires wait outside until they're welcomed in." "Whatever," Victor scoffed, rolling her eyes. But her face was still flushed a pretty pink as she crossed the room. "What are you working on?" She leaned over him, a hand resting on his shoulder, sending chills through his body. Either she didn't notice, or she pretended not to. "Wow! Victor, this is amazing!" Her voice was breathy. "Is this somewhere in Shadyside?" "Yeah, it is." He nodded, turning his head to look up at her. "Over the cliffs at the edge of town. The view up there is amazing." "I bet," she hummed. "Do you have any others?" She nodded at the notebook. "A few, I guess." He flipped through his book, backwards. He knew where there were no drawings of her before this one, since his trip to the cliff had been months ago now. He paged through the book slowly, letting her get a quick look at them before flipping to the next. He had always hated sharing his art with people. It felt like he was offering them a piece of his soul that wasn't for outside viewing, and allowing them the opportunity to pick it apart. But it was different with her. Everything was. "Why did you make all of the moons red?" She eventually asked, when he closed the book, moving to sit on his bed. "The whole picture is white and grey, but then the moon is always red." "I like drawing with graphite more than colour." He shrugged, subtly slipping his page marker out, just in case she wanted to see something more recent and forgot to ask. "But the moon's always red and shady. It felt wrong not to colour it." He followed her to the bed, sitting closer than he really needed to. "Wait, really? It is?" She blinked her bright eyes, and Victor almost forgot what he'd said. "The moon is red, like, every night?" "Every night." "Wow. I'd love to see it sometime." "I'll take you," he answered immediately. "I'd like that." She smiled shyly. And suddenly Victor was almost excited to find the keys and go home. If it meant he'd get to show her Shadyside. He couldn't wait to show her everything that he loved about that town. The moon, the stars and their shapes, the cliff, the beach, the meadows. He'd introduce her to Fluffy, who he was sure would love her. That little jerk always liked girls way more than boys, and Vera wasn't exactly the most affectionate person to be around, even if she was nicer to the cat than she ever was to him. Hell, he'd even go to Sunnyside. He'd bring those glasses that blocked the sun, or even just force himself to get used to the light if he had to. Anything to keep seeing her when all this was over. "I wanted to thank you for yesterday, by the way." She eventually spoke again, and Victor almost jumped. Was she talking about what he thought she was talking about? The moment? Ray told me that you went looking for me. Oh, right. Duh. Yeah, of course I did. He bumped his knee against hers. Are you doing okay today? I am. She ducked her head, but Victor saw her ears turn pink. I think it's just been a long week. I haven't been sleeping right. I think the tiredness just won over the logical part of my brain. Right, Victor winced. He knew he was partially to blame for her lack of sleep. Yeah, sorry about that. He shifted his knees slightly, putting some distance between them again. No. She rushed out the words, shaking her head quickly. I didn't mean because we've been... Her face flushed red. I just mean like that. Even when I do try to sleep, I wind up tossing and turning for hours every night. Oh. Okay, cool. That made him feel at least a bit better. At least her exhaustion to the point of a mental breakdown wasn't completely his fault. And part of me knows that this has been a long time coming. Ray and I were long overdue for a proper conversation. It all just bubbled up too quickly, and I flipped out. Yeah, I get that. He leaned back on his hands. Are you two doing okay now? He thought back to what Vera had said. That Ray was Nova's Victor. She had said it so easily, with so much assurance. And though she was weirdly cagey about whatever it was she and Nova had talked about, he believed her. She paused, biting her lip, and Victor had to fight not to let his eyes drop from hers. We're talking. We both need to get a little bit better at that. It'll take some time, but I think we'll be okay. Her eyes were so serious. Victor nodded along. He could understand that. He and Vera had had their fair share of spats that could have ended with them if they had both put in the effort to do better. So, does he know you're here now? He bumped her shoulder, decided teasing her was a safer conversation. Shut up! She laughed, bumping him back. He's probably off doing whatever activity they had scheduled. Oh, yeah. I totally forgot. You're skipping to talk to me now. He wiggled his eyebrows. I am not! She gasped, putting a dramatic hand to her chest. I'll have you know that I actually told Addison that I wasn't up for participating today. And she okayed it. I said that I needed to be alone for a bit to think about what happened yesterday. Yeah, you're super alone. He laughed, nudging her again. Can you two shut up? Vance interrupted whatever argument was on her tongue, throwing his curtains open to glare at them. First, she's waking the whole cabin up at the ass crack of the morning, and now you're here flirting and interrupting my beauty sleep. Victor's face flushed immediately, and Nova covered her face with her hands. I should probably... Nova babbled, rushing to stand up and smacking her head on the bottom of Arcus's bunk. Whoa, are you okay? He jumped up, reaching up and taking a hold of her head. That had to hurt. He felt around her head where it had come in contact with the bed. No bump. Yet. That was good, right? Concussions usually swelled up immediately, at least in his experience. I'm fine, she squeaked, and when he glanced down, he noticed how close their faces were. Ugh! Vance groaned even louder this time. Just get out! He threw a pillow at them before aggressively pulling his curtains shut. Victor and Nova shared a look before the pair began to laugh. Let's go before he bites us, Victor chuckled, his hand dropping from her head and snaking down her arm until he held her hand in his. He pretended not to notice the goosebumps that followed his trail as he used their joined hands to lead her out of the cabin, knowing that he really had no reason to keep their hands together, but relishing the fact that she didn't pull away. Besides, I found something I think you should see. Oh? Yeah. When I was at the ruins last night, I noticed something weird. Figured I'd see what you thought it might be. Shouldn't we tell someone where we're going? He tilted his head. Why would they do that? Disappearing during the middle of the night is one thing, but during the day? They did send people out to find us yesterday. She ducked her head again, and Victor's face grew warm. Right. People looking for them was the reason they were interrupted. Was this her way of saying she didn't want anything to interrupt them again today?
I'm sure it'll be fine, he bluffed, faking confidence though his heart was pounding. No one will even notice we're gone unless we miss lunch.
Nova made a noise of complaint, but didn't argue, letting him lead her along the familiar path to the cave. When they stepped inside, she dropped his hand. Victor watched, expecting it this time, but still no less transfixed, when Nova's eyes glowed golden, flames appearing on each hand. She was the most beautiful person he had ever seen. She shot the fire onto the torches, and the cave lit up immediately. Come on, he led her to the tiles. But before he could point out the vibrant floor accessories, she spoke up from behind him. What are these? Victor turned, seeing Nova on the staircase to the top of the mountain. He squinted, eyeing the shape sticking out from the walls.
The phases of the moon, he approached her, but they're not in the right order.
He didn't know how he had missed that on his past 2 trips inside the cave. Phases? Nova blinked at him, tilting her head. What do you mean?
Oh, right.
He supposed it would be pretty hard for a daywalker to know about the phases of the moon, if they didn't have a moon. It was something only a vampire would know. He eyed the colourful piano tiles below them. Was his hunch right?
Haven't you noticed the moon getting a little bit bigger each night?
He spun the first moon on the wall until it resembled a full moon before moving on to the next one. Has it? Nova moved with him as he progressed, spinning each spear and landing them at a slightly different angle.
Tonight would be what we call a full moon.
He pointed back to the first moon he'd fixed. There was a glowing symbol above it, and the second now.
Then over the next 2 weeks or so, he continued to correct the phases, the moon will slowly seem smaller and smaller until it almost vanishes in the sky. Then 2 more weeks, and it'll be back to full.
He spun the 4th moon at the bottom of the staircase. Vanish? Nova blinked at him, following along eagerly. The moon can vanish?
Not really, he laughed,
shaking his head before spotting the next 4 moons.
It just looks like it has, because it's facing away from us.
He spun the 5th spear until the dark side was facing outward. A symbol lit up above it immediately.
We call this a new moon.
He pointed at it. Do they all have names? Nova traced the object without moving it.
Yeah, but most people don't use the real names. He shook his head. Between a new moon and a full moon, it's called waxing. First the crescent, then the quarter, then the gibbous. Then after the full moon, it's called a waning.
That's so cool! Her eyes sparkled brightly as he spun the last moon, the waxing gibbous, into place. Something in the ground shifted below them. I wish I could see the full cycle one day. His heart leapt. That was the 2nd time today she had mentioned wanting to see something either in Shady or out here. Maybe she was thinking about their future almost as much as he was.
Hey! He nudged her shoulder. Weren't you the one that said anything could happen?
Yeah, I was. She ducked her head.
Now, Victor took a few steps back. Your turn to play teacher. Bright and shiny seems like your department.
He nodded to the piano tiles. Nova blinked, stepping closer to the risen floor. The colours of the rainbow. Also in the wrong order. He gestured for her to go ahead. A rainbow is like a special light refraction that happens when a ray of light hits water droplets just right, she explained, shifting the red panel first.
So it comes out every time it rains?
He watched her expert hands skip the orange tile, then swap the yellow and green. Not every time. Nova shook her head, continuing. Only when the sun is out. And it doesn't have to be raining. Sometimes it can happen on a dewy morning or a foggy evening. Anything that leaves a lot of moisture in the air.
And the colours always appear in this order?
He leant down, tracing the tiles she had already slotted into place. Yep. Every time. She nodded, moving on to the last 2. The purple and dark blue. It's Roigviv.
He raised an eyebrow. Was that English? She laughed.
It's an acronym. Roigviv is how kids learn the order of the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet.
Indigo and violet?
He repeated incredulously, eyeing the last 2 colours.
Aren't they just dark blue and purple?
Nova giggled. You're probably right about dark blue, she admitted with a shake of the head. But saying light blue and dark blue doesn't sound as nice. Indigo is a nice in-between the colour of blue and purple.
And violet?
We actually have a flower back home called a violet. She ducked her head, and Victor had a feeling she was only pretending to focus on the dials. He supposed that flowers could be a pretty touchy subject between them, after yesterday. He thought back to the flower crown she had made for him, which was now sat tucked under his bed, keeping it safe from being accidentally crushed in his bag, while also hiding it from the view of his nosy cabin mates. The longer he could go without having to explain what it was and how he got it to Vargas and the others, the better. Absently, he wondered what she had done with the red flower he had given her. Did she treasure it as much as he did hers? Violets are pretty much this exact shade. She touched the purple, finally swapping it and the blue. They're one of my favourite flowers. They used to be my #1 favourite, but... She trailed off, and Victor thought he knew exactly what she was going to say. His face burned. She had a new favourite flower now, and it was the one she didn't even know the name of. His heart skipped. Was this it? Was this his in to talk about what had happened between them in the field? To ask her about the moment they had almost shared? After all, it was putting the flower, that she was now calling her new favourite, in her hair, that led up to their almost kiss. Did she think about it as often as he did? Did it replay in her head when she went to sleep, the same way it did his? Did she wish that they hadn't been interrupted too? He felt himself being pulled forward, almost against his will, and she finally met his eyes. Maybe he could find the answers to all those unanswered questions. Right here. Right now. He opened his mouth to ask, a thrill shooting through him when her eyes shifted down again. Before he could say anything, do anything, something to his right shifted. The purple tile dropped into its proper place, and immediately started to glow. The rest of the colours followed suit, and then the moons around the room. The floor shook again, and Victor and Nova both stumbled as something slid from the rock a few feet away. Victor knew instantly that it was the second key. They were one step closer to opening the gate. One step closer to going home. Possibly forever. His heart hurt as Nova took the first step, removing the key from the amber frame, only to be surprised when she immediately offered it to him. She was giving it to him? Why? You found this. She pressed the cold object into his hands, when he didn't take it right away. This victory is all yours. Hey. He held onto her hands with one of his before she could pull back. We did this together. This test was designed for our people to work together. I couldn't have found this without you. She ducked her head again. She really did do that a lot. It almost made him wish he wasn't a few inches taller than her. Almost. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. One thing I absolutely love about this is MJ knows the colours of the rainbow because of the Rainbow Magic Fairy books. I used to read those too when I was a kid. The name of the fairies of colour are in order. Ruby the red fairy, Amber the orange fairy, Saffron, Fern, Sky, Izzy and Heather. It was something that was so iconic to me growing up, and I've actually still got those books. The next chapter's a heavy one though, and I do love this one. It's so gentle. And her seeing him shirtless. Girl is blushing. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and all my new pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.